Let's begin.
Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. It's time we get back to the lake in present time. But isn't the curse over, you ask? Well, yes, it is. But the hijinks continue. After all, every deceased legend gets an obit, such as with tonight's little Doughboy420 story, Obituary, the Devil of Locust Lake.
It was the end of senior year for a group of high schoolers. They were all talking about their futures, laughing and joking, rushing through the halls toward the freedom of adulthood or the entrapment of such, depending on how each of them viewed the time ahead of them. Michelle Harris removed the colorful magazine clippings that decorated her locker throughout the last year of high school and placed them into her bag with a sigh, looking forward to a new chapter in her life.
Hey, Shell.
A girl's voice spoke up from behind her before the blonde girl in a jean jacket, black skirt, and a white top leaned onto the lockers beside Michelle's.
The girls and I are going to meet up with some friends at the old campground by Locust Lake to celebrate. Are you in?
The blonde with blue eyes asked. Michelle brushed her wavy auburn hair to the side and looked at her friend Adrienne Field like she was crazy.
Isn't that place, like, cursed or something?
Michelle asked, unsure of what was being asked of her.
Don't tell me you believe that crap. Besides, we're only going to be there a few hours. You'll be home before dark and the monsters can come out.
Adrienne teased her friend.
Okay, fine. Who's all coming?
Oh, you know, the girls. Cindi and Lori, Jason.
Adrienne went on and on, mumbling the next name before continuing on.
Doug and some of the other people from school, I'm sure. Word of a party travels quick in a tiny town like this.
She finished.
Wait. Who was that you said in there?
Brad.
Oh, come on, Adrienne. No, I hate him.
Michelle spoke up angrily, shifting her glasses further up onto her nose.
Come on, there will be so many other people there. I'm sure you won't notice.
Ugh. Fine.
Yay! You won't regret it.
Adrienne told her in celebration before giving her friend a kiss on the cheek and running off with jolly glee to go talk to the others about the big event. When Michelle and Adrienne arrived on scene a few hours later, the small party had already started. But unlike how Adrienne had promised that she wouldn't notice Bradley, she instead very much did notice him, and he made sure of it. Every chance he got, he interjected himself into the conversation. He offered her drinks, which she refused, leaving him with 2 cups of booze to chug down. Michelle sat on an overturned log that was used as a bench, and Brad sat down beside her. Jason Hodder must have sensed the unease in her, so he sat down on the other side and tried to spark up a conversation. He was a dumb jock, but he was a pretty nice guy. Hey, what's up? Jason said to her.
Not too much, just trying to enjoy the party.
She answered, with emphasis on trying to get Brad to take a hint. I like your glasses, Jason said, not knowing exactly what to say.
Thanks. I think they make me look kind of nerdy, not in a cute way.
Michelle answered, putting herself down. Nah, I wear glasses too. Or, I did. I wear contacts now. Jason said, pointing to his baby blue eyes.
Oh, really? No way.
Michelle said, genuinely surprised that the popular boy had something in common with her.
Dude, this place is sick.
Doug spoke as he showed up. Yeah, I knew you would love it here, Jason replied to Doug.
You know it. Man, I love this shit. Hey, didn't we used to go hunting with a cousin and uncle near here a while ago?
Yeah, just the next mountain over.
I went hunting with my dad a few times, but I really didn't like it. What about you, babe? Didn't you used to go hunting with your old man?
Bradley tried to butt into the conversation, bringing up her father and old times, which she ignored before getting up to go talk to the girls, telling Jason it was nice talking to him on the way. Later, when it got cold, Brad offered her his coat, but she instead walked down to her car by the road leading into the Locust Lake camp in order to grab her coat herself. This is when she noticed the other group of graduates from her school, although she was surprised that that was the case. Rob Cougar was the local weed dealer, making his presence with the other two, smoking a joint in the woods, a not too uncommon occurrence. The guy was a bit short, blonde, blue eyes, and he always carried around a backpack, which was always filled with marijuana. Sawyer Hansen was tall, always wore a denim jacket with the sleeves cut off. He had long, shaggy, dark-colored hair and brown eyes, a regular rocker, loner type. Heather Anderson was a goth girl, black lipstick, black nail polish, heavy on the eyeliner around her brown eyes, listened to dark rock and heavy metal. She was the weird girl in the school. All of them were the biggest potheads imaginable, and this was just a typical day for them. Michelle paid them no mind and grabbed her jacket from the car before closing the driver's side door and turning to head back up to where the others were, but she was startled when she bumped right into Brad, who had followed her down to the car.
Hey, babe, why you keep ignoring me?
Bradley said, a bit irked by the situation.
I just want to get back to the party, Brad.
Michelle said, ignoring his question.
Come on, babe. You know I'm sorry. You know I don't like how things ended.
You used me, Brad. You got what you came for, and then told the whole school that I was easy. They told me, it must run in the family, and dumb shit like that, because of my sister. Fuck you, Brad. I'm going back to the party.
Michelle said, pushing past him, knocking him in the shoulder along the way. Bradley just stood there, rubbing his arm where she bumped into him, feeling like a real asshole.
Damn bitch.
Bradley mumbled to himself, before he too turned to rejoin the party. But when he spun around, he was met with a large gut-hook knife to the neck. The look of shock and confusion filled his eyes, and his hand came up to cover the gurgling hole in his neck that tore outward as the hooked blade was withdrawn. His blood gushed out from between his fingers, and soon he succumbed to the wound, his body dropping to the dirt in a growing pool of blood. Back at camp, the party was really starting, and it was beginning to look like they would be there for more than just a few hours. Doug Spencer was hauling some wood back to start a fire. He was a bit of a movie buff, horror movies being his favorite, so of course he loved the location of the party. He wiped sweat away from above his brown eyes and waved toward an approaching truck. Jason was backing his truck into the campsite, where he opened the tailgate to reveal the keg of beer inside, to really get the party started. Lori Curtis was behind one of the cabins relieving herself, while Cindi Campbell and Adrienne Field were chatting about the newest gossip. Lori finally came out, wiping her hands with disinfectant, making sure to get from wrist to pink-painted nails. She was disgusted with having to go to the bathroom in the forest. She was a bit of a girly girl, and this wasn't her style at all. She was more into lining her brown eyes with eyeliner or styling her wavy brunette hair to the newest fashion at the time.
Need me to hold your hand next time?
Cindi teased her. Cindi was a green-eyed redhead with a bit of a poppy, spunky attitude about life. She was a fun person to be around, hence why Adrienne invited her in the first place. Everyone was having fun and chatting, drinking and having a blast. Then, suddenly the celebration came to a screeching halt when Heather came in screaming and holding her side, which appeared to be covered in blood. She stumbled onto the ground, breathing heavy, pointing at the direction from where she had come, and there, in the shadows, was a man with a black, stitchwork mask. The man raised his arm above his head, holding a knife, which brought another scream from Heather, followed by screams from some of the other girls and some of the guys freaking out. Then, without warning, the man dropped his arm and removed his mask as he burst out laughing. It was Sawyer Hansen. Heather joined him in his laughter and licked some of the blood off of her hand.
It's just ketchup,
she joked in her laughter.
What the fuck, you guys? That's not funny!
Yelled Adrienne.
It is a little bit.
Cindi giggled.
I can't believe you guys fell for that shit.
Sawyer laughed.
I don't even look like Casper Stoical.
He poked fun at them.
How would you know what he looks like? He isn't real.
Adrienne growled at him.
That's what you think. Of course, you think he's just a legend, just like Jacob and the rest, when the town covers up everything that really happens here. Truth is gonna look like myth,
Sawyer explained as Robbie walked up to him. Hey, bro, Jason said, offering a bro hug handshake to Robbie Cougar.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Robbie asked. Pretty good, bro. You want a drink? Jason offered him.
Hell yeah, dog. You want a toke?
Rob offered in return. You know it, Jason replied, as Robbie began to retrieve the product from his bag.
Hey, I'm Doug Spencer. What's up, man?
Doug introduced himself to Rob.
I'm Robbie Cougar. Nice to meet you, homie.
and you can bet his mom lives up to the name,
Sawyer joked.
Very funny, asshole.
Rob grumbled to his friend before lighting up a joint and passing it to Jason. The group of teens passed around the drugs and alcohol well into the night before someone finally realized that Brad had left and never returned.
Where do you think he went?
Cindi asked.
He probably got all butthurt and took off after Shell wouldn't let him hit it again.
Adrienne joked.
Yeah, that guy's a douche. Who cares where he went?
Michelle piped up.
I was his ride. I don't think he would just leave.
Sawyer interjected.
It's not that far to Cecilia Baker's house. Creepo probably walked over there and tried to hit her up too. If she's smart, she'll tell him to hit the road as well. If anyone is easy, it's that piece of crap.
Adrienne suggested. All the girls agreed and continued on with their party before Lori was once again bothered by the call of nature.
God damn it.
Lori spoke.
I gotta pee again.
She grumbled.
Oh, want me to hold your hand?
Cindi quipped, which got her the flip of a bird from Lori as she walked away from the fire and into the darkness of the forest, away from where anyone could see. She walked through the trees and what appeared to be a large tree stump in the forest before she finally settled to relieve herself. She squatted down and began to let go, where she thought was away from where anyone could see her. Then, what at first appeared to be a tree stump turned and raised their head to reveal the robed shadow that it really was. The girl didn't even get a chance to finish her business before a hand came around her mouth from behind, and a large, gut-hook hunting knife was driven into her back, between her ribs at her side, where it hooked upon her intestines and dragged them out, upon its exit back out from the torn hole from where it had entered. The girl screamed in pain into the hand as a second stab nicked her rib before plunging into her flesh once more, and then again and again, tearing through her body upon each exit. Back at camp, everyone was getting ready to pack up and head out. They had another, much larger party to go to in a few days. Several of them had gone down the road to their vehicles already, while others hung back to clean up and put the fires out before Jason drove them down to their vehicles. Then, a scream rang out from down by the cars. Jason and Doug went running to find out what happened, while Michelle, Cindi, and Rob stayed behind by the fire, wondering what was happening. When Jason and Doug arrived on scene, they found Adrienne and Heather standing over top of Bradley's corpse that now lay in a large blood-stained area as the blood pool had long since soaked into the earth.
What happened?
Asked Doug. What's going on? Asked Jason as the two of them arrived on scene, followed by an "oh shit" as he saw the body on the ground. The discovery of Brad's body made an excellent diversion as a group of screams echoed across the night air, coming back from camp from where Cindi was being stabbed repeatedly in her stomach, ripping her intestines out with a hooked blade, much like her friend before her, having to rip the blade of the hook through the protruding intestines at the end in order to fully remove the knife, allowing their contents to spill out in a disgusting display. Michelle stood there shocked and absolutely terrified of what she had seen. She didn't know how to handle it, and her brain wasn't registering exactly what was happening properly. Robbie stumbled backward over the log and fell on his back, where he crawled and scrambled to get away as the masked killer stood up, revealing his striking shape in the flickering of the fire, where he dropped Cindy's lifeless corpse. He wore a thin, black coat and a hood pulled up over his head. He was met at the crown of his head by two small protruding horns that poked out from under the hood. White horns that connected to an equally pale forehead and down to white and print-covered cheeks that grew slender to a pointy, bearded-looking chin. All across his face were words and people's pictures, as obituaries had been ripped right from the newspapers and glued together with paste made from water and flour to form an unpainted papier-mâché mask of a grinning devil, his lips curling to form a sinister smile. The man's dark-colored eyes peered through the eye-holes of the mask, glaring as the fire raged in their reflection. Michelle finally managed to scream at the sight of her friend's brutal death, standing there in fear, and Rob sobered up very quickly from terror and adrenaline before the knife-wielding murderer turned his gaze in his direction.
Oh shit!
Rob spoke before attempting to flee, but the much faster devil pursued him and quickly caught up to his victim, not far outside of the glow of the campfire. The obituary killer leapt forward, driving his knife into Robbie's back beneath his right shoulder, causing him to fall forward beneath the weight of his attacker. The devil removed the knife from his victim's back and spun him around so that he could look him in the eyes. Rob could barely breathe as he looked up into the raging brown eyes of the man beneath the mask. In his last moments, he saw the faces of other victims of Locust Lake looking back at him from the mask of the devil above him, before the knife was driven forcefully and repeatedly into his abdomen, tearing violently through his flesh and ending his life. The devil stood up and wiped his blade clean on his side before returning his attention to Michelle, who had regained her composure and taken off running, the murderer chasing soon after her. He caught up to her near the old, rickety wooden bridge that spanned the small stream that ran into the lake, where, much like Rob, he managed to tackle her to the ground, but instead of using his gut hook like he had done with the others, this time his gloved hands came up and his fingers wrapped around her neck, strangling her slowly at the water's edge as she gasped and choked for air. Michelle reached up in an attempt to fight off her attacker. Her fingers clawed at the paper mask of the killer, digging and tearing through the cheeks of the obituary devil. Her hands wet with mud, allowing her to easily tear away at the weakened material to reveal part of the lower half of the man's face, but soon lost her energy, and things began to go dark, when suddenly the obituary killer was attacked from the side, allowing for air to painfully rush into her lungs once more. The girl looked up to find a struggle between the masked killer and her rescuer, Jason Hodder. She held her neck, still struggling a bit for each breath. Jason landed some blows on the killer, but the devil was still armed, and with that large gut hook knife, he made a slash at Jason, swiping across his side and leaving a long gash in his torso. The teenager fought through it and managed to wrestle the knife away from the murderer before plunging it into the devil's chest. The obituary killer let out a gasp, looking up at Jason with a tilted head before he fell limp upon the ground, and Jason felt safe finally enough to release his double-handed grasp upon the handle of the blade still embedded in the killer's chest. The remainder of the group finally made it back to camp to find Jason still on top of the masked devil, but it was when he reached down to remove the mask that they were all left with a shocked gasp when they found that it was Sawyer Hansen beneath it. The lot of them were left with so many questions. Why did he choose the method that he did? Why did he wear the mask? But most of all, they wondered why their classmate would turn on them in such a way. For a few days, they wondered this exact question, as the police interviewed each of them in order to find out more, but in the end, they were too stumped as to why Sawyer would do such a thing. A few days passed, and each of them recovered in their own way. Some kept the party going, others withdrew a bit. Michelle was released from the hospital with only minor wounds, while Jason spent another day or so there after receiving stitches to close up a 6-inch long wound in his side. Finally, the following weekend rolled around and the day came for the big party at Doug's house. This was the real graduation party, where everyone was supposed to be. Some of the survivors of the most recent Locust Lake massacre were unsure of attending, but others were determined to not let the trauma they lived through control them.
Absolutely not,
said Marge Harris, Michelle's mother.
But Mom, I don't want to live in fear of a dead guy. Just let me go. I'm fine. He's dead. It's over,
Michelle demanded.
No, end of discussion. While you live under this roof, you will also live under my rules. I don't care how old you are, the answer is no.
Marge put her foot down, slamming her drink glass down on the counter, the smell of liquor on her breath. Michelle raged back to her room, very angry with the situation. She sulked in her room for a while, but figured it was better to be late than never, so she waited until her mother passed out drunk on the couch before opening up her window to go across the porch roof, where she could descend the latticework at its far side. Michelle put the car in neutral and let it drift down the hill of the driveway before starting it up on the road to head off to the party. Doug's place was up on a hill in Halstead. His parents owned pretty much the only mansion in town, down to its private driveway. They were loaded, to say the least, and were still on vacation in Fiji, even though their son had just survived a murder spree. It goes to show what kind of people they were. On vacation while one of their children was nearly murdered. They didn't have neighbors close by, so they were able to play music pretty loud, and it was really pumping when Michelle pulled up into the driveway to park her car at the end of a long line of other cars. The mansion was packed full of people, and all of them were drinking and having a good time. The entire front room of the house had been turned into a dance floor. The basement was set up as a game room with arcade games, a pool table, a ping pong table, and a foosball table. Upstairs, in their home theater, Doug had set up a horror movie marathon to play all night long. And this is where Michelle found him and several others, including Adrienne, who looked pretty drunk, leaning against the doorframe at the entrance to the room. Penny Curry, a green-eyed petite girl with pigtails. She was a bit of a playful and fun girl to be around, but she could be quite spiteful if she wanted to be. There was also Heather Anderson, who looked to be absorbed in thought at the time, with a beer in her hand that she casually sipped on occasion. And of course, there was Felicia Baker, a brown-eyed redhead who had a problem with Michelle for years, due to their on-again, off-again relationship with Bradley.
Michelle, come on in and take a seat. Dude's about to cut his own hands off,
Doug said with drunken glee.
Dude, don't you think it's a little messed up to be watching this crap after what happened?
Adrienne asked as she stood near to the doorway.
Nah, it's research. How I figure is, the more I know, the safer I'll be for if anything like that shit happens again. You should really take notes,
Doug explained.
Not really my cup of tea, or should I say, whiskey?
Adrienne said, taking a sip of her red plastic cup before exiting the room to join the dance floor, giving a grumbled, "Hey," as she passed by Michelle.
Hey.
Michelle greeted her in return.
What about you, Michelle? You want to join us in some bloody goodness?
Doug asked, causing Michelle to look up at Felicia Baker, who returned a disgusted look back at her due to their past history with the now deceased Bradley Ray.
Ugh, nah. I'm good. But you guys have fun.
Michelle said, waving to them as she backed out of the room.
Suit yourself,
Doug said, returning his attention to the movies as the man on the screen laughingly removed his own hand.
Ugh, sick, dude.
Penny said.
I gotta go pick up my mom from work. Her car won't start. I'll be back later,
she added, before she too got up and headed out the door. Michelle found Adrienne down on the dance floor getting absolutely smashed and grinding up on Mike Castle. The guy had a cool-sounding name, but he was anything but. He was a super nerd that LARPed and played D&D on weekends, and beyond his dungeon-raiding crew, he didn't have much in the way of friends at school. Michelle quickly came to her rescue, knowing that if she remembered herself grinding on the nerdiest guy in school, that she would crawl under a rock and die of embarrassment. So, Michelle grabbed her friend by the wrist and pulled her off the dance floor and into the kitchen, where a big punch bowl of liquor and mixers were being served.
Ooh!
Adrienne said, as she scooped up the ladle of booze to dump into her cup. But Michelle swiftly dumped it back in.
What are you doing, Riri?
I'm living. That's not as much as can be said for some people.
Drinking everything at the party isn't living, Riri. It's just numbing it and hiding what happened.
I'm not hiding anything!
Adrienne yelled before storming off.
Riri, wait!
Michelle said, but it was too late. She lost track of her friend in the crowd. Michelle went searching for her and eventually found herself in the game room in the basement, where she located the glasses-wearing Mike Castle once again, along with his overweight dungeon master, Daniel Todd. They were playing an old arcade game from the 80s, and from the sound of Danny's frustration, Mike was wiping the floor with him.
Hey, have you guys seen Adrienne?
Michelle asked the boys.
Nope, not since you blocked me on the dance floor,
Mike said, not taking his eyes off the game.
You didn't stand a chance, bro. Hate to break it to you.
Michelle informed him.
She was all up on this. You're just jealous that you can't get with it,
Mike said, showing that what he lacked in popularity, he definitely made up for in confidence.
In your dreams, bud.
Michelle said, before turning back upstairs when a roar of cheering erupted from that direction. Michelle rushed upstairs to find a crowd of people gathered around a familiar blue-eyed boy with short, buzz-cut hair. Despite having stitches holding him together on his side, he decided to make an appearance at the party.
Yo! The guest of honor is here!
Doug shouted from the balcony before rushing down the stairs to give his friend a hug. Ouch, man. Watch it, Jason said, holding his side after the hug.
Sorry, bro. Hey, everyone! This guy's a hero! Someone get this man a drink!
No, I'm not. Jason humbly disagreed, then changed his tune and happily accepted the drink with a nod and a smile.
To the man that saved our souls! Cheers! Woo!
Doug yelled before chugging down a drink.
Woo!
Felicia and Penny roared from up on top of the balcony and joined in on the drinking. Everyone else cheered with them and raised their drinks to the hero of the night that single-handedly took down the new Locust Lake slasher. He didn't really feel like a hero, but he accepted the special treatment nonetheless. Doug guided Jason upstairs to relax and watch some horror movies with him, even though Jason looked pretty reluctant in doing so. Michelle continued searching for her friend as the party started thumping once more. People were dancing as the rap music pounded. Everyone was having a great time and gathered around the DJ booth toward the back of the room, where Nathan Vernon had a beer cap on, a can of beer on either side of the hat, straws going down into his mouth so he could drink while dancing and playing music as the DJ. Then, without any warning, the music came to a crashing halt when a girl's body came down upon the speakers and the equipment. The dance floor erupted into terrified screams, and everyone began to realize just what had happened. A girl had dropped from the second-floor balcony and was covered in blood, dead, and mangled upon the DJ booth. Michelle finally found her friend, covered in stab wounds and blood, her body folded over upon itself, on top of the broken music equipment, where she too let out a scream, her eyes glued upon Adrienne's lifeless body. She then looked up from where the body had fallen and saw the same white devil mask, plastered with obituaries, standing on a mostly empty balcony, staring down at her. While everyone was screaming and fleeing for their lives, Michelle, instead, was filled with a fire of vengeance. She rushed to the stairs and began to ascend towards her friend's murderer. When she got to the top of the stairs, Doug was standing at the doorway to the home theater, where he was wondering just what the hell was going on with everyone screaming in the house.
Hey, Michelle. Do you know what's going on here?
He asked, as she desperately looked around for Adrienne's killer.
Where the hell is he?
Where's who?
That piece of shit that killed Adrienne.
Who? Wait. What? Adrienne's dead?
Yeah, and he was wearing that same damn mask that Sawyer was wearing.
Michelle began going room to room, either finding them empty or interrupting teens making out or getting frisky. Jason came out of the bathroom, still buckling his pants when he found Michelle. Hey, what's going on? He asked, as Michelle tried to go by him, followed by Doug soon after.
Adrienne's dead, and we need to find the bastard that did it.
She said that he was wearing the same devil mask that,
Doug hesitated.
That Sawyer wore.
He finished. What? Jason said in quiet disbelief.
Wow. Gotta get out of here.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Better believe I'm gonna get my bat to fucking defend myself, though,
Doug said, before ducking into his bedroom to grab his baseball bat, but soon thereafter came a clunk sound, followed by Doug stumbling backward out of the room, holding his face, and blood appeared to be running from between his fingers. But Michelle didn't have any time to react when Jason grabbed her hand and said, "Run!" before pulling her down the hallway and down the stairs, towards the sound of thumping hard against something could be heard behind them as they ran. The pair of them fled outside, where the line of cars was parked down the driveway. Many of them had already left the scene.
Hey, wait!
They heard as they ran towards Jason's truck. They looked to find Danny and Mike hiding in the weeds off to the side of the driveway, barely visible in the darkness of night. "Come on, my truck's just down the hill. Let's move," Jason offered. But it was too late. The obituary killer emerged from behind them, his devil mask shining through the darkness as victims of Locust Lake watched the new murderer killing from a new perspective. The man lunged out of the shadows and immediately drove his gut-hook knife into Mike's abdomen. The boy screamed in pain as the knife was withdrawn and sunken back into his flesh multiple times in quick succession before reaching out and slashing across Daniel's stomach, causing a deep gash just above his belly button. This caused his stomach to give way and allowed his guts to spill out all over the dirt. Jason fled but lost his grip on Michelle, and she bolted in the other direction, off into the darkness. She knew that they weren't too far from the nearest house, and she figured if she could just make it there, then she could get to safety and get help. The poor girl didn't realize that there was a small 10-foot or so cliff at the edge of the property line. This caused her to take a tumble and fall, where she smacked her head on the solid ground and knocked herself unconscious. When the girl came to, she found herself back inside the house, on the couch in the living room, dizzy and very much confused, but mostly all right. She suddenly came to the realization of where she was and snapped awake, causing her head to pound with pain, but she didn't care. She had to get out of there. Michelle immediately went for the door, but when she opened it, she was met with the familiar face of the devil standing there, waiting for her. It hadn't been very long at all since she had been knocked out, and she figured the obituary killer was just toying with her. The man in the mask lunged for her, but she slammed the door hard on his arm and side, causing him to pull his arm close to him and recoil with pain, allowing the girl to slam the door closed and turn the bolt, locking the murderer outside. She watched the white mask disappear in a flash as he ran toward the side of the house, where Michelle immediately sprinted through the mansion to the back door, where she locked that too, just before the papier-mâché mask of the obituaries appeared in the glass on the other side. He still held his arm to his side, giving Michelle the satisfaction of having wounded him, giving him a bit of a smirk as she watched him through the door, slowly backing up all the while. He attempted to push the door open violently at first, pounding his hand against the wood, but that made no progress. He calmed, looked up at Michelle through the glass of the paned window of the door, where he tilted his head to the side, and then slowly pivoted to the other, staring at the girl through dark, brown eyes, just like the ones that had glared at her from behind the mask at the lake, just like Sawyer's soulless eyes beneath the mask of the obituary devil. The devil then raised his shiny, gut-hook knife and tilted it from side to side as if to say, "No, no, no," before angling the blade backward and slamming the pommel of the knife on the glass, instantly smashing it, allowing him to reach in for the lock. Michelle tossed a chair at him before running back to the house and up the stairs in an attempt to hide or find some way to defend herself. In Doug's sister's bedroom, she paused for a moment, where she heard a sound coming from the closet. Thinking maybe the young girl could be hiding in the closet, Michelle made a quick decision to help the girl, so she swung the door open, where she was nearly clocked with a baseball bat. She moved out of the way just in time, but instead of finding a little girl hiding in the closet, she instead found Felicia Baker and Nathan Vernon, beer hats still on, cowering inside, both terrified out of their wits. They nearly screamed when the door opened, but Michelle didn't have time to say anything. She quickly spun around and joined them, closing the door tightly shut behind her. Together, they hid in terrified silence. Felicia and Nate curled up in the fetal position against the wall, while Michelle instead chose to stand, hugging the wall to the side, where she was able to peer through the crack in the slotted closet door. From the room, they could hear the bed being flipped over and end tables being knocked about as the obituary killer raged in the girl's bedroom before leaving the space entirely, allowing the three of them a moment of respite. Finally, the trio allowed themselves to breathe once again after pretending to be motionless statues in the closet for so long, not even daring to take the smallest of breaths out of fear that he would hear them. Michelle finally took her gaze off the room and looked down at the others, who held on to whatever they could for dear life, for some semblance of normalcy and safety.
Is he gone?
Felicia quietly whispered.
Yeah.
Michelle answered quietly in return. Then, an arm burst through the slotted part of the door, as if the killer had been waiting there and listening the entire time. The devil then grabbed a hold of Felicia's hair and yanked her forward, out of the closet, and before anyone else inside could react, the obituary killer drove his knife into her chest as she lay struggling in the bed. Repeatedly, he stabbed her, and while he was doing so, Michelle grabbed Nathan's hand and pulled him out of the closet with her, where they both made a break for the door. Michelle made it through, while Nate was grabbed from behind by the obituary killer, who lunged for him, driving the knife down with great force through the calf of his right leg, causing the young man to scream out in pain before the knife was then withdrawn and driven back into the back of his head, where his skull met his neck, the hooked blade severing his spinal cord and causing him to drop to the ground as he bled out and watched helplessly for the last few moments of his life, as the devil then began to take chase after Michelle. The obituary killer chased the girl down the stairs, where she opened the door and immediately bumped into Penny, nearly knocking her down.
Oh my god, what the fuck?
Penny said in angered disgust.
We have to go,
Michelle said, attempting to pull Penny along with her, but she resisted.
But I just got back. Ugh.
Penny said, yanking her hand away from Michelle, confused at her strange attitude, but she soon found out what Michelle was running from and why she was so urgent in getting her to leave with her when the obituary devil bolted down the stairs and charged right into Penny's back like a bull, pushing the knife through her spine, causing her to scream and drop like a sack of potatoes. The murderer ripped the knife out of her, pulling bits of her spine out, the wound with it, before driving the gut-hook knife into her back and through her lung. The girl's screaming turned into a gurgling as she began to drown in her own blood. Michelle kept running as the devil slaughtered Penny behind her. As Michelle fled, she devised a plan. She ran toward the cliff once more, ducking through the trees on the edge of the property line, where she found the cliff, where this time she grabbed onto a tree and spun around to the opposite end, right at the edge of the cliff. Here, she hid and waited for the killer to show himself, where she planned to push him off the cliff and put a stop to the murder spree herself. She waited in silence, only the sounds of those chirping crickets and the far-off sound of vehicles passing down the road. Finally, she heard footsteps followed by a girl calling her name. Michelle quickly realized who it was. It was Heather calling for her. At first, she wanted to go out and help, but then something dawned on her. The obituary killer had brown eyes. Heather had brown eyes. She originally thought the killer was a man, but perhaps she was wrong. She originally thought that Sawyer was the only killer too, but now she knew there was another, and she was wrong about that too. Then she heard Jason calling for her as well. "Michelle?" Jason called out. "Michelle!" He called again. She felt more at ease knowing that Jason was there, and it looked safe enough to come out from the shadows. "Oh, there you are. I've been looking all over for you. I was starting to fear the worst," Jason said, upon seeing her, before rushing over to her and giving her a hug, thankful that she was safe.
Can we go now before Pasteface comes back?
Heather said, looking around nervously.
Wait. Heather, where have you been the last hour?
Hiding from a psychopath in a mask made of obituaries. I came out when I heard Jason looking for you. Figured safety in numbers and all.
Is that really what you were doing?
Yes. What's with the third degree all of a sudden? Shouldn't we be getting out of here now?
I figured that the killer had to have been someone that was there at Locust Lake the other night. Someone with brown eyes, because the killer has brown eyes.
Yeah, so what?
The killer has brown eyes. Heather, you're the only one of us left with brown eyes.
Michelle revealed her intentions, positioning herself so that Heather was between she and the small cliff that she had fallen from earlier, determined not to let the obituary killer escape.
What? You think I'm the killer because I have brown eyes? Are you crazy? You have brown eyes. Maybe you're the killer.
Jason was with me when the killer killed Dan and Mike. You weren't,
Michelle said, stepping toward the girl, causing her to back up to the very edge of the cliff.
Come on. I am not the killer. I would never. I swear.
Heather said, her voice cracking as she began to tear up out of fear. What are you waiting for? She killed everyone! Jason spoke up, causing Michelle to react from the pressure and push the girl off the edge. Heather let out a short scream before she hit the bottom and fell silent. Michelle only intended to injure the culprit, to put a stop to her crimes and have her arrested. But when she looked down at the girl, she noticed the red pool beneath her head, shining in the moonlight and slowly growing. Heather's head laid bent unnaturally to the side, over a large rock, blood pooling beneath her. Michelle gasped and put a hand over her mouth in disgusted shock of what she had done. Even though she felt what Heather had done was terrible, she felt what she had done made her no better, and it sickened her. Holy shit, Jason chuckled. It really does run in the family. You're just like your whore sister, Jason said, while holding back a gleeful laugh.
What?
Michelle said quietly, not entirely registering what was just said. You're a murdering whore, just like your sister, Jason spoke up.
What? Why would you say that?
Michelle said, holding back tears as her stomach retched inside of her. No one believed me when I said it. They told me I was crazy, but your fucking sister took advantage of an urban legend that the town kept secret, and she took my cousin Braden out there, and she fucking killed him. Jason began to explain. She fucking killed him and hit the road, never to be seen again.
What? That's not true. My mom told me my sister moved to California for college.
Bullshit.
A familiar voice called out before clapping of gloved hands could be heard. The source of the clapping soon came into view as the white papier-mâché mask of the obituary devil came clapping out of the darkness.
Grade A bullshit.
The familiar voice spoke once more before he ceased his clapping and reached up to remove his hood, followed by the horned mask plastered with victims' faces and life stories. Michelle gasped once more, her stomach turning just as much as her mind as she realized who was speaking to her. It was Doug Spencer.
But you...
Michelle began, but was cut off by Doug.
Got my head beaten by a baseball bat? Ketchup. Should have listened to your friend down there.
Doug joked, gesturing with the blade of the knife pointing down at Heather's dead body.
But why?
Michelle said, tears welling up in her eyes and her voice cracking.
Why would Jason, Sawyer, and I slice and dice all our friends like a real-life slasher movie? Well, Locust Lake has been a legend for a long time. I wanted to be part of that legend. A devil amongst the embodied sins of Locust Lake. It's kind of poetic, don't you think?
And Sawyer? He wanted to expose the cover-up, let the world know what was happening by making it impossible to hide. To be honest, we were gonna kill him anyway. Needed a fall guy to take the heat off us. Really wish that dumb shit didn't ruin our mask. Doug had to make another one from scratch.
Luckily, Jason saved all the newspapers from years ago. Otherwise, we would have been fucked.
But why did you save me?
He went too far. I couldn't have him killing my bait. I needed the worm to lure in the big fish. I figured once your sister got wind of you being in trouble, all your friends dropping like flies, that she'd come home and protect you. I figured even a monster like her would care about her family, right? But boy was I wrong. I even waited a few days and watched your house. Not a fucking thing. Turns out Lillian really is a monster. Jason explained himself, causing Michelle to nearly burst out into tears.
Aw, shit. The little monster's gonna cry.
Maybe I've been going about it all wrong. Maybe I need to gut my live bait. Let the smell of the blood lure in the real prey, Jason said, motioning for Doug to hand him the gut hook knife, to which Doug happily obliged.
You forgot one thing. You killed Sawyer. Now you don't have a fall guy. You're gonna get caught. And you're gonna rot.
Now, you see, people call me a dumb jock, but I'm a lot smarter than you think. I've planned this whole thing out for years. I have built this plan for years, Michelle, even going as far as to getting colored prescription contacts, Jason said, before pulling one of his contacts away from his eye to reveal his brown eyes beneath. Years. You think I didn't plan for this? Jason said, before plunging the knife into Doug's chest, bringing a look of surprise and complete shock out of him. Sorry, bro. At least you got your wish. You're part of the legend forever now. Jason spoke to his friend as he looked into his eyes, lowering him down to lay him on the ground before withdrawing the knife once more, causing Doug to let out a bit of a gasp before coughing up some blood that ran down his cheek as his eyes went blank, staring off at nothingness. Michelle backed up to the edge out of fear, her heart racing in her chest as she tried to figure out what to do. Should she jump? Should she run? Fight back? She didn't know how to react as the emotions and questions swarmed in her breaking mind. Jason had her trapped between he and the cliff, much as she had done to Heather. She had nowhere to go. The only option she had as Jason stood and approached her was to jump off the edge and hope for the best. She turned and leapt from the cliff, feeling weightless for a moment. Hopefully she would get away, and then landed with a loud snap as her leg folded over beneath her. She screamed and nearly threw up onto the ground before she attempted to crawl away. Jason simply lowered himself down off the edge and hopped down the last few feet, where he was able to walk over to her with ease. Crawl, little worm. Fertilize the soil with your blood so that the lily can grow, he said as he approached, before he finally drove his knife down into her, and then again, and then again. She never made a sound as he ended her life. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction.
Well, If the curse doesn't get you, the residents will. Best to steer clear of Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania altogether, unless you're feeling adventurous. But if you're dying for more gore galore, stop in again next weekend. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.
Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.